Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel. This is Business Connections Live with Steve Hyland.
Hello there, welcome along. It is Business Connections Live, the program for entrepreneurs, SMEs and business owners. Hey, get this. I am really dressed down today. Had to dress down a bit because I got a fantastic guest lined up for us today. If you've ever been to a networking event and you thought, well, that was a waste of time then, or you've been to a networking event and you thought, do you know what, I can't believe how valuable and useful that was, then our guest today is going to be somebody that you're really want to listen to. He is the man that's written the book. He's probably got the T-shirt somewhere as well. It is Stefan Thomas. Stefan, lovely to have you with us today. How are you keeping? The man that wrote, Networking for Dummies.
Would it surprise you to know that I've got the books here as a prop, Steve? I'm well. You're dressed up compared to me, but you know that I rarely dress up, so it's good to see you.
Well, it's great to see you as well. We're both naked from the waist down, but let that not excite anybody at the moment. Stefan, for those people that don't know who you are, just give us a brief summary of who Stefan is and what you're all about.
I started networking and made a complete hash of it. I guess that's the best way to start introducing me. And 8 years after that, they asked me to write Business Networking for Dummies, they being the publishers of those books. I'm now an author of networking books. I've written 3 in total, one of them probably since I last spoke to you, Steve. And I speak on networking all over the place. So this is actually my job now. I talk about networking and I write about networking.
Do you think networking, Stefan, has changed a lot since we were all looking at what networking was about? I mean, some people will say, I've done networking, it doesn't work for me. And I know that there is a process that you take people through when it comes to understanding what they're doing with processing. Is it the right place to start to talk about real networking where you go somewhere? Or should we be today talking about offline network or online networking where we're doing everything through social media, over Zoom conferences and things like that? Where's the best place for us to start today, do you think?
I think it's networking changed with what we called Web 2.0 at the time with social media. So I think those people who already had a handle on how to use social media have had a pretty decent head start over the last four or 5 months. All networking, certainly in England at the moment, I know some real life networking is starting to creep back, but all networking right now is handled online. And actually, we need a load of the same skills. We need a few subtly different skills, but the old meet, like, know, trust is exactly the same whether we're doing online or real life. So it doesn't particularly matter where we start, if that makes sense. Some of the same skills, some of the same processes need to be applied.
When we're talking about the processes, Stefan, what do you think the core processes are? If there's one thing that you find yourself saying to people who are talking to you about improving their networking skills, what do you think the most likely thing is that you're going to say to them?
When people ask me, they always mean that they want to talk about what to do at networking events. People want to get their 60-second, 40-second introduction right. People want to know how to approach conversations at networking events. And actually, so much of networking has got to do with what you do after the event or in between actual events. One of the things that I talk about a lot is that every big opportunity starts with a little conversation. And the thing that I'd really like more people to realise is that the networking event itself is only the start of the conversation. So many people think that the networking event should be the beginning and the end of the conversation. It's just the start.
Do they have too high expectations, do you think, sometimes when they go there? Do they not understand that it is about making connections initially? And in fact, the very word networking is saying that it may not be the person you're talking to, but it may well be the person's network that you're talking to, where maybe future work will come from, or the opportunities will arise in the future. Is it just a misunderstanding about what the whole thing is about?
Yeah, and I don't think it's people's fault. When I if I work with professional firms, what often happens is that the governor, the CEO or the managing director of the firm will often send out the junior partners networking, and it's their expectations. It's the governor's expectation, which is often wrong. They expect people to come back with instructions. They expect people to come back with sales, and that's where I try and set expectations a bit lower. When I go to a networking event, and I still go to 3 or 4 networking events every week, all I'm ever looking to do is start conversations. And I wish people would get their head around that. The thing is, no one goes to a networking event to buy from you. Everyone goes to a networking event to sell, to expand their network. But people go to networking events sometimes expecting that everyone else is there to buy from them somehow. And that's where their expectations go wrong. They just think that everyone else in the room is there for a completely different reason than them.
So do you think you need to be a conversationalist then? What do you talk about? Is it a case of talking to them and I can see why some people would feel uncomfortable about this. They'll talk to them and they'll feel that they've never ever got their message over during the conversation. So hence the reason that they walk away from the event thinking that they haven't actually achieved anything. What do you talk about when you're talking to people that you're meeting for the first time? How do you start that initial conversation?
Again, I'm smiling because I'm thinking back to real life networking events, and I used to drive a long way to get to networking events. So the two things that I'd be looking for when I arrived would be a cup of tea, and being a man of a certain age, I'd need to find the loo as well. That's probably, I don't think I've written about that in the book. I think people get hung up because we call it networking. People feel that they need to start the conversation with something really clever, but it really is just about starting conversations. When I speak at networking events to people, I ask about them. I find out about them. I want to know about them, their businesses, and so on. And that's what I would do in real life as well. When I say real life, if I meet someone down the pub, I ask about them, how their week's been, and that sort of thing. When we put this networking label about things, people think that we have to do something particularly clever and talk about other stuff. Every big opportunity starts with a little conversation. All I need to do at a networking event is start the conversation. We can build the relationship in the time after that.
This whole area of know, like, and trust, which we often talk about, some people liken it to the dance that we see sometimes on some of the social media platforms, on LinkedIn. So, you follow someone, you connect with them, you then comment on what they've done, and then eventually somewhere down the line, a bit of magic happens and people start to do business with each other. Do you think that is, what do you think when people go to these events? What's the primary reason they're doing it? Surely they're going there to get work, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. It's a question. If I get to speak in front of an audience, and I'm loving speaking in front of virtual audiences, but when I speak in front of a real audience, I always ask the question, why did you come to this event? Whose business did you come here for the sake of? And there's usually a pause when people try and work out whether I'm being clever or asking a question to trick them. But then someone's always brave enough to say, I came here for the sake of my business. And people go to networking events for the sake of their business. If we get our heads around that and understand that everyone else is there for their sake and not to buy from us, that can completely change how we approach the networking event. You mentioned something in your last question. I don't make any attempt to talk about my business or what I can do for people in those initial conversations. I just want to find out about them and talk about them because that's what they came to the event for as well.
So it's the whole opportunity for you then to let people know what you're doing at this particular event are those 30-second pitches, those 30-second resumes of what your business does when you do get an opportunity to stand up and go, this is what I'm all about. Is that where the pitch is done? But the rest of it is really social engagement.
Right. So there's a couple of really interesting things going on there. The first one is that I've never liked the idea of the 30, 40 or 60-second introduction being a pitch. Again, everyone else is there for the sake of their business. What I try and do and what I try and teach people to do in their introduction is give people just enough that the other people in the room want to find out more, rather than trying to pitch everything about you. What people try and do is skip the steps. You're not trying to make the sale. You're just trying to take the conversation to the next step. So the introduction round, what some people call the elevator pitch, but I don't like that, is just there to give people enough that they want to find out more about you. The conversations tend to be more business than social, but what we don't need to try and do is sell in that moment at the event itself.
See, you're saying everything that people would expect you not to say, because they're going to be saying to themselves, well, I'm going to a networking event and the reason I'm here is to sell. And when I stand up, I'm going to do my pitch. That way, you go to a BNI meeting, and of course, that's all about the exchange, isn't it, of work from one person to another. And if you're not clear in what your organization or your business does, then people won't have a clear idea about what business or work you're actually after from them. So how do you get around that problem? Can it all be done in the conversation? So really what you're doing is more of a tease.
Can't remember. I'm sure we've talked about this before, but I was an estate agent.
Yeah, I'm sure we have, but it doesn't matter. We'll repeat it all again.
No. This bit, I was an estate agent for 20 years. That's the bit that I can hear people booing now. But that's what I did for 20 years of my life. And when we advertised in the paper, we just wanted to give people enough that they picked up the phone and came and spoke to us. That's what I'm trying to do in my introduction. To pick up on what you've just said about BNI, it's really important for people in their 40 or 60-second introduction to respect the platform, to understand whether they're at BNI or For Networking or Athena or whatever it happens to be, because the point of the introduction at each one is subtly different. You're absolutely right. The point of the introduction at BNI is to tell people specifically the type of referrals that you're looking for. When we started talking and I said about social media, this is where the conversations after the event, and this is where social media becomes so important, so that people can actually see what you do when they check you out online afterwards, because they will.
So do you think it's important then to actually have a decent social media profile that's out there? So, for instance, your profile says exactly what you do on LinkedIn. I know you use Facebook quite a lot. What about the other ones? Do you feel that you used to be very big on Twitter? God, you were big on Twitter in the old days, but one gets the impression that even though we're streaming on the Twitter and Periscope right now, that as a platform, it doesn't have the same. Well, unless you're a political correspondent for the BBC and you want to get into trouble and say something outrageous, for businesses, it doesn't seem to work as well.
I'm not sure whether it works as well. I think it's just that we've all got finite time, and a lot of the chat, a lot of the conversation moved from Twitter to Facebook very noticeably. You're right about journalists. Twitter is still a brilliant place to pick up press opportunities for any business. I still look to Twitter for that. But no, I think the chat, the conversation, I've moved a lot from Twitter to Facebook over the years. LinkedIn, it's not just important to have a profile on LinkedIn. It's important to actually get stuck in, to engage with other people's posts, to post stuff yourself. For example, this is going out live on LinkedIn. So if I check Steve Hyland's profile, it's not just what it says in your profile, it's this going out as a post as well. I can see exactly what you do through the stuff that you post. So keeping visible on all of these platforms is a part of the process. After a networking event, people are likely to check you out online. What are they finding when they look at you?
So just be aware of what your profile is looking like, and what you're saying about yourself and what others are saying about you as well. That's really interesting. Okay, so we've alluded there to the online networking. How has that changed the landscape? We've all been forced into it to a certain extent. COVID-19, of course, has been just one of those kind of things. It's come along, it's put us in lockdown. We're in a position now where really what we want to do is we want to get out there, we want to revitalize our business. What would you say to people then when it comes to the skills that are needed for online networking? And what kind of form do you see it taking? And is it going to be the new norm?
Yeah, the new normal. That's an expression that none of us had used before, March, had we?
No.
I believe it is. I believe there will be now a mix of real life and online networking events. And you used the word forced, and you're absolutely right. Of course, technology like this, like me talking to you today, technology like Zoom, don't we both wish we had shares in that in January? Now we've been forced to use them because they've been around for a few years. People are finding out that actually you can do a lot, and certainly in the absence of being able to shake hands, in the absence of being able to sit down and have breakfast, you can do an awful lot on Zoom. But there are subtle things that you need to do differently. I think one of the first ones is that if I was at a networking event now talking to people, I would be making sure that I maintained eye contact with people in the room. And of course, to maintain eye contact with you and with all the people viewing, what I'm doing, of course, is making sure that I talk to the little camera in the corner of my device, so that it appears as if we're maintaining eye contact, and also making sure that I'm lit properly, that things aren't too untidy in the behind me, and I'm devastated about the wires I've left trailing down the wall. I didn't know they'd be visible.
Nice picture, by the way, up there in the corner. Just where is it? Just there.
Yeah,
just that picture. What's that all about then?
There's my three sons, and me as well. There's a picture of my book. Some product placement, hardly surprisingly.
Yeah, but it is interesting because these are different disciplines now that people have got to get used to. And I think over the course of 4 months, we've seen the cameras being lifted up so that we're not seeing the cornices of the room behind them. People are looking down the lenses. It's very tempting for me. My camera, as you were doing just then, my camera is there, yet you are actually there. So, and this is something that when we do media training, we teach them in the studio, because whenever there's a picture, we inherently just want to look at the picture. So a lot of the conferences that you see on screen at the moment, the presenters or the people who are presenting on them are looking either at their own image or the image of everybody else. And that is very disconcerting. And you do lose this eye contact, don't you? And I suppose it's that the human nature of eye contact, because we read so much into the way somebody looks, what they do with their eyes, how they're thinking, and we are making assumptions all the time. And I think to a certain extent, the video conferencing, all those this technology has been like a microscope on the way people react one-to-one.
What I think is brilliant is that if people embraced social media, and with a lot of the training which I know you do with people who had learned to use this along the way. So I've been doing videos to my phone, which I put on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube for a few years now. So I had learned to talk to the camera, and I've been into your studio a couple of times and learned when to talk to camera and when to talk to you. But you're right. That synthesis of real interaction, for some reason, even though you and I have told your audience now that it's false, that we're actually looking at the camera, people still prefer the impression that we're maintaining eye contact. And you're right as well, that one-to-one interaction, there's something really odd now. When you're at a networking event with 20 or so people in the room, the focus is very different to when you're doing your 40 or 60 seconds now and you're the only person on screen. I think people are paying more attention to what we're doing than they were even in what I still called real life, even though this is real life now. I think people are paying more attention to what we're doing minutely than they were in real life.
Well, in many respects, the technology is forcing that upon us, isn't it? Because there you are, you're in glorious high definition, and you're right in front of my very eyes. So it is an uncomfortable place to be. When you talk to people on the retreats that you do, your networking retreats, that you take people away, is this something now, are these the new skills that you've introduced into your networking retreat that you're giving people the opportunity to explore and to develop? Because get this right, and they're set up then, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm really glad that I started talking about social media when I did. And to some ridicule, really, back in 2008, 2009, I think business people weren't seeing the possibilities that social media offered. But now, as well as the skills of actually how to engage in a virtual networking environment, such as talking to the cameras, as we've said, such as making sure that people can hear you, and me and you needed to mess around with that just before we went on air to make sure that you could hear me. As well as that, it's all of the virtual interaction, the social media interaction that happens afterwards that, yes, I've been talking to people about for years, and yes, I'm really glad that at least a few people have paid attention to me.
Right. Well, what we're going to be, we've still got to talk successful networking online, the subtle changes we have to make to our networking style. We're going to talk about that, and how to follow up with the right people, and how to make sure we continue to make sales. Now, if you've used online networking successfully within your business, we'd love to hear from you. If you just want a name check for your business, or you want to put a question to Stefan today, as I said, he's the man that's not only got the T-shirt, he has really written the book as well. And just to prove it, there's the book all over his face. Ta-da! But you can get in touch with us on any of the platforms. Just leave your message. It'll be shared across all the different platforms that we're on at the moment, so you can share your contact details with everybody. Everybody will know who you are, which is going to be fantastic. If you have a question, please do get in touch with us here. But more to come from Stefan in just a few moments' time here on this edition of Business Connections Live. You know, it's great to have your company. And as I said, we've been forced into this weird place. I'm going to ask Stefan actually whether he thinks we're suffering a little bit from, I'm going to call it Zoom fatigue, but it could be any of these different platforms, Zoom, Team, Skype, whatever. Are we beginning to suffer a bit of fatigue from it? And if we are, how do we revitalize ourselves and make certain that what we're doing is still engaging? And I think engagement is probably one of the most important things when it comes to using these different social media platforms, and this kind of one-to-one communication that we're using when it comes to video. You're watching Business Connections Live. Let's go back a week. We were talking about marketing last week. Emma Taring joined me on the program. It was a fantastic show with Emma. Emma and her partner, Anive, they run an organization called the Matrix Marketing Limited, or Matrix Marketing. And they're based in Walton-on-Thames, a fantastic organization. Their customers are small SMEs, actually medium-sized businesses as well, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs as well. And they help them really get their message out there. And they do it in a very structured way. They do it by being mentors for them too, but they actually give them tangible things that they can go away and they can do. They also show them how to write for press releases and also how to write properly for their website. Fantastic program last week. If you missed it, now I suggest you go back and watch the entire program at businessconnectionslive.com with just a few of the key takeaways and her contact details. Here's Emma Taring.
Hi, I'm Emma Taring from the Marketing Matrix, and we help corporate escape artists to create and grow their own consultancy businesses. What we provide is the structure that you need to get that business going. We give you a really realistic step-by-step framework to help you build your marketing strategy and go out there and attract those perfect clients that you love working with, who pay you good money and who really appreciate the services that you offer. So we'd love to talk to you. If you're just at the stage of thinking about whether you might leave corporate, it's the perfect time to have a no obligation chat with us. You can email us at hello@themarketingmatrix.co.uk. Go across to our website, themarketingmatrix.co.uk/escape, or give us a bell, 0208 353 86588. Thank you very much.
It's very interesting the way things are these days, isn't it? And also how important it is for us to really have a clear message. And I thought, thanks to Emma for coming on the program. If you want to find out more, if you want to see the program, if you want to be on the program yourself, why not get in touch with us here at Business Connections Live? It is dead easy to do. Honestly, all our contact details will be on screen. That's who I am. Drop us an email to studio@businessconnectionslive.com. Better still, why don't you pick the phone up and give us a call? 01784 256 777. All the way through this, we have not closed, so we've been open all the time. You can follow our stream of consciousness at BCL Business TV. And the best place to go, of course, to watch the program, well, you can go to Facebook. But why don't you go to our website at businessconnectionslive.com? But you can catch up on the programs on Facebook, LinkedIn, Periscope. We are all over the place at the moment. I've just noticed that the top of my PC is just adjusting it, just coming into frame there. Okay, my guest on today's show, fantastic guest. His name is Stefan Thomas. He is the man that wrote this book, Business Networking for Dummies, a fantastic book. If you haven't got a copy of it, shouldn't it, Stefan? It should be in your library, shouldn't it?
Oh, definitely. It's less than a tenner on Amazon these days as well. So it genuinely does help people get a load more out of networking. It's about 6 years old now, Steve.
Really?
Yeah, I know. I've written 2 other books since then, but Facebook was just giving me some anniversaries the other day when I signed the contract for it.
My word, 10 years old. And it shows you that that it just hasn't really changed, or at least the face-to-face stuff really hasn't changed. It is about, meeting people and having a good conversation with them and finding out a bit more about them. Before we heard from Emma, I was talking about fatigue when it comes to doing these kind of meetings. Do you think people are becoming slightly fatigued when it comes to Zoom meetings, Zoom networking events, conferences and things like that? Are they beginning to find this just a teeny weeny bit tiresome?
I think at the beginning, around the middle of March, beginning of April, all of this was a novelty to people. So undoubtedly there's been a honeymoon period, plus of course a load of people have gone back to work in that time. So I think there is a bit of fatigue. You wouldn't, in the normal course of events, you wouldn't go to several networking events a day, and yet I know people who've been doing exactly that. And I did 10 in 1 week, which was far more, at least twice as many as I would ever do in real life.
And it was online tiring. Ones, online ones.
Yeah, right. 10 online networking events in 1 week, and it was tiring. I read something in one of the Sunday papers, and I'm sure you understand this better than I do, but apparently this experience of being this close to other people's faces can in itself be quite stressful for humans. Usually, if we were this close to other people and I'm 6 or 8 inches away from the screen, if I was that close to another person, I would be either about to fight them or kiss them, apparently. And so we tend to react differently. I've got better now at making sure I have time away from the screen, as well as all of the time that I spend on the screen these days.
Isn't that an interesting thing? Because here we are with 2 big heads on the screen, aren't we? And if you watch broadcast television, you very seldom get this. The shot is normally a lot further away. That's more of a newsreader shot that you're going to get. So this kind of shot side by side, where you get a truly talking heads, can be very disorientating and maybe perhaps, as you say, threatening. It's a very intimate way to communicate with somebody when you're this close to them. What did they say about it, by the way? What did they say? What should we do? Pull back from the camera a bit?
Give ourselves a bit of time away from it after events, and that's certainly something that I've got better at. I think linking that to what we're talking about in the round, one of the things that I absolutely do after any networking event, whether it's real life or virtual, is make sure I've got time in my diary to follow up with the people who I've met at the event. So I guess I give myself a little bit of downtime by default after each event by making sure I've got the time to make those LinkedIn connections and send those emails rather than going straight into another meeting, which I've started to find a wee bit tiring after 4 or 5 months of doing it now.
But isn't that always the problem? That what we all do is that we go to these events, we go to these meetings, and what we do is we never, ever, ever follow up. So you go to the event and then you do nothing about it afterwards. You go online, you meet somebody that could well be interesting. You do nothing about it. You get a connection request come through and you go, yeah, I'll connect with you. And then you do nothing about it. And the thing that amazes me sometimes, particularly on LinkedIn, you'll go back and you'll respond to them. So somebody asks you to connect, you connect with them, then you go back showing interest in what they're talking about, and they never respond back to you. We are just not very good at responding, are we?
Just coming to that, actually, this is my real desk. This is where I actually work from, and because I go to quite a lot of networking events, I've got a very old-fashioned piece of tech next to the screen. There we go, and I actually write down the names of the people that I've spoken to so that I don't forget, and I make sure I connect with them on LinkedIn straight away. I started my career in 1983 in shoe shops. I worked in a shoe shop in Oxford, and we were taught how to spot buying signals. My genuine open-mouthed gasp then was that if you go to someone and express interest in what they're doing and they don't ever respond, that's really incredible to me, because that's a huge buying signal if someone actually expresses interest in what you do on LinkedIn.
I know, and it's just bizarre. People will just ignore. It's as if, well, I suppose the problem could well be that there is a lot of automation going on, and I know there shouldn't be. How do you feel, while we're on the subject, how do you feel about the instant pitch? I connect with you, and the next piece of correspondence I get is the long form pitch document. What's your feelings around that? Do you think there's a place for that? Is it a selling platform or is it an introductory platform?
I think the wonderful thing about all of these things are that they are what we want them to be and how we use them. Personally, I don't read a pitch that I get from someone who's just connected with me. If someone sent me a pitch and said, hey, Steph, we were speaking a few weeks ago and you said this, and I've been thinking, and actually I offer this service and it might be useful to you in this situation. Can we have a chat? That's going to get a wholly different response from, we connected this morning and now here's 800 words about what we do. That's the way I work, though. I can only imagine that it works for some people, and that's why people do so much of it, though. So I'm not critical of it. I just don't respond to it myself, and I use LinkedIn in a wholly different relationship building way than just sending someone who I've just met. It's the whole dancing around the handbag thing, isn't it? You don't, or at least I don't think you do. It's many years since I went to a nightclub. You don't invite someone back to your flat straight away. Or at least you didn't in my day. You build the relationship first, surely.
Particularly as you brought your handbag with you as well, which is always a bit suspect, if you don't mind me saying. Let's go through the process then, because, I mean, that's what we've promised. We've alluded to it. So how to successfully network online? What do you see then as the process? Does it start with selecting the right networking events, or can you go to any networking event and take advantage of the circumstances and the situation?
Yes, you can go to any networking event. I have never spent my time trying to decide whether a networking event's going to be right for me. I honestly believe in serendipity, and I believe that you should never judge the people who are around you. That's not my way. No one goes to a networking event to be someone else's target market. So looking for networking events where only your target market will be, seems to me to be inherently flawed. The process to me is summed up in the know, like, trust, or meet, like, know, trust, depending on which flavor of networking you go to. You meet someone, and then you put the effort in to build the relationship, so you get to that position of trust, so that they trust you enough to either buy from you or refer business to you. But it is a process. You start the conversation at the networking event. you continue the conversation afterwards. And then also to speed up the whole thing for the time we've got today, you learn to spot those buying signals as well, which still exist online, just as they did in the shoe shop in 1983. They're perhaps a bit more subtle, but you move the relationship to that position of trust, and you also make sure that you spot buying signals along the way. And I think some people miss out various parts of that process.
Interesting. My partner in crime from Business Connections Live, of course, she's here. And just move that down so that's not all over your face. There we go. And she says, hi, Steph. Agree. I can usually tell when people that try to link in with me are going to send me a sales pitch if I accept, so I press ignore. So, I mean, she's even cutting out another step of it there, you know, if she feels they're going to be selling. But, I mean, do you think there is a place for that sales pitch? Is there a place occasionally when somebody could send you the pitch actually that you've been actually waiting for? Does that ever happen?
Oh, completely. And this is when I talk about relationship building. And hi, Linda, by the way, it's lovely to see Linda virtually. Once you've built the relationship, as I mentioned a few moments ago, sending Linda a message to say, hey, Linda, we've been chatting and I've been watching what Business Connections Live does, and I've been watching what the rest of your business does. And listen, if you've got 5 minutes, I've got a service which I really think might work for you. After you've actually connected with Linda, maybe after you've engaged in a few of Linda's posts, that's when someone is likely to react positively rather than just going in there completely cold. You said a minute ago about whether the techniques have changed. The best book that was ever written about this stuff was written in 1937, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That whole process of actually being interested in other people and then not being afraid to show them where the till is at the right part of the relationship, that's basically the process. But Linda would respond much more positively to someone who had genuinely spent time building the relationship and sent her a personal message rather than just copied and pasted, which I absolutely hate.
Let me ask you this question. Do you like being sold to? Do you enjoy that process? Or the moment somebody starts selling to you, it makes you switch off? You see, I'm a bit of a sad man. I quite enjoy being sold to because I love to listen to the technique, the way they're doing it. I mean, God, when I go back to the shopping telly days, you know, somebody was on, I was looking at somebody's video online the other day. Is that in your place, the motorbike? It's not in our soundproof studio. It's not.
No, that's the benefit of us using this mic that we switched to. It's a motorbike going past outside.
It's going to pick it up. But this guy, Mike Winnett, I think his name is, off the top of my head, and he was playing a video. And what he was saying was he went to one of these big, you know, you need to get this product now. It's going to cost you $5,000. And in a 23-second period, the guy used the NLP thing about, by now you've probably made up your mind. By now, you're probably saying to yourself, this is the thing that you want to get. By now, you've decided you're not going to walk out the door. And he used by now 23 times within a course of a number of sentences. Do you enjoy then being sold to, or is it something that switches you off?
No, I'm really sad, and I've spent since 1983, however long that is, broadly speaking, in selling careers. So when someone's doing it well,
it's a joy.
Actually saying this on screen is potentially dangerous. So when someone does it well, I often end up feeling obliged to buy from them. When I see someone handling the relationship, that's going to open the floodgates, isn't it? When I see someone handling a relationship right, I'm not sure about the NLP techniques personally. I think I'm probably with Mike Winnett on that one. They come across as a bit too obvious these days, frankly. Because we all know the buy now thing. If you like me, we all know that stuff now. So when you see it feels a little bit icky, I think.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Mind you, if you go on to many of the shopping channels, it's still being used. So let's not knock it. And it does work. And I suppose sometimes the people that we're talking to are not people, dare I say that, it's awful. But you know what I mean? They're not thinking the way we're thinking. So maybe it will work. Maybe it's appropriate to them. I don't know, and it will work. So more power to their elbow. But I do enjoy being sold to.
But
A good salesman. However, I've been looking to get a new car just recently, and it was interesting. I've been to all the major dealers. So we're Jaguar Land Rover, fantastic. See, you're a Jag driver, sir. Here's the keys to another Jag. Take it away. Bring it back when you're finished. You've made up your mind. No hard sell. And I went to a Kia dealer, and I had to ask the salesman to stop talking, because he just didn't give me a moment to think. We're driving along, and he was in the back, giving it all of that. He was, and I had to say, with all due respect, would you please just shut up and let me think about what's going on here at the moment? And Mitsubishi, very good. They just, I've given them all a bit of a quick plug there. You can see all the cars we're looking at. But it's interesting. I love being sold to when I'm being sold to well. I find that really, really interesting. Okay, so let's just put this down in 1, 2, 3, the processes to go through for online networking. They are.
One thing which I'm going to say, based on what you just said, though, when you go to a shopping channel, when you go into a car showroom looking at a car, you're there to buy something. People don't go to networking events to buy. So the techniques, the strategies are different. So the process, firstly, go to networking events, which sounds really silly, but there's a lot of people who still aren't. Online networking is here to stay, as we've talked about. So get yourself booked into some networking events somewhere. Get yourself booked in and do it. Have a 40 or 60 second introduction, which gives people just enough that they want to find out more about you. In the chat, if you have one-to-ones with people, use your time to find out about them, build the relationship with them. Connect with people after the event, LinkedIn and Facebook, Instagram if people are on Instagram, and so on and so forth. Connect with them afterwards and spend your time being interested in them. So in 2020, we can actually show people that we're interested by liking, commenting, sharing their stuff. We can demonstrate to people that we're being interested in them. When you do that at scale, enough of those people will come back and look at what you're doing, and then you need to make sure that you're showing them something, that you're putting out content, something that I talk about a lot on both LinkedIn and Facebook, particularly Instagram, if that's right for you as well. Make sure that you're putting out content, that you're giving people something to look at. And finally, this goes back to my days in shoe shops, don't hide the till. Make sure that as well as doing all of this, and it's surprising how many small businesses don't do this, you actually show people how they can buy from you at the end of it. And I think small businesses sometimes get, or small business owners sometimes get a bit scared of doing that last bit of leading people to the till when the relationship's right. I think that's the process, start to finish.
I think people actually get slightly embarrassed about asking for the money. I mean, you sit there, and I suppose you've accumulated all this knowledge, all these skills that you are passing on to somebody. And because something that you're doing on a regular basis becomes easy to you, you then feel you can't justify the cost to the customer.
Do you know what? I said this to one of my sons the other day, my 20-year-old George. There's something that he does which he doesn't realise that other people, including me, can't do. He can. He's got great spatial awareness. He's a plumber. He can take things apart and put them back together. So because he can do that so apparently effortlessly, he doesn't get that other people can't do it. But I would place huge value in that. Because you can do something that other people can't do, it has value. And I think that's where and certainly me back in the day when I started this journey, I didn't know how to charge people for something that actually comes relatively naturally to me, writing stuff, what I used to charge people for. And I think you're right. People do get embarrassed. People don't learn the sales skills. I'm sure you've had brilliant guests on here that can teach them the sales skills. When I worked in shoe shops, and to this day, if you go into a fashion retailer, if you look up on the ceiling, there'll be a big sign that says, please pay here. it tells you, where to complete the transaction. Sometimes we do get a bit shy of doing that, I'm sure.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, before we listen to Paul Glynn, I was going to ask you for your 1 minute, your 30-second pitch. I'd be very interested to hear. Would you mind sharing that? It makes it sound so polite now. How could you ever say no to me? But would you mind sharing that 30-second pitch that you do use when you're online, so that people can understand the kind of thing that you're trying, by example, you're trying to explain to them? Would you mind doing that?
Not in the slightest. I'm going to start by just explaining the process that I go through, the steps that I go through. I start by telling people who I am. Then I tell them what I do. Then I tell them how I do it. Then I give people a testimonial, something nice that someone said about me, a call to action, and then I finish off by telling them who I am again. So I'll step through that. Hi, I'm Stefan Thomas. I'm the author of Business Networking for Dummies, and I help people win more business through business networking. Really simply, my clients sell more stuff at events just like this. I run the Networking Retreat, which is a virtual retreat where you come and spend a couple of days with me and a very select group of other people. And in a really dynamic workshop, we'll completely turn your networking round and make it successful. Really recently, I worked with Cressy. Cressy is the happiness coach based here in Oxfordshire. Cressy said that previously people weren't taking her seriously. And since working with me, not only do people take her and her business seriously, but she's now got a steady stream of clients. If you want to find out more, we're virtual today. So I'm going to pop my details in the chat here so that you can follow the link. I look forward to speaking to you. My name's Stefan Thomas, author of Business Networking for Dummies. Yeah, as you would expect, I've done that a few times, Steve, so I can pretty much do it whenever anyone asks me to.
Do you know what? That, and really incredibly, it was fantastic because you followed the process. I found out who you were, found out what you did. I hope that isn't a summary of the program, because you've got that to do in around about 5-10 minutes time. So let's just hope you've got something slightly different on that to actually say. Listen, we'll come back to you in a moment. Thank you for doing that, because I think that for a lot of people is going to be really, really useful. So thank you very much for doing that. Stefan Thomas is my guest on today's show. You're watching Business Connections Live. Hello, Steve Hyland with you here. How are you? Well, the sun is out. I'm looking out through the big round window at the moment. It's a lovely day. It's another hot one. So if you're watching this on catch up, thank you very much. If you are watching live at the moment and you'd like a name check on the program, then do get in touch with us. Just drop a comment. Or if you've got a question about networking that you'd like us to put to Stefan, then do let us know here. Don't forget to like the program as well. We like the thumbs up. If you have a comment after you've watched the show, then please do that as well. Now, one of my other favourite guests that we've had a number of times on Business Connections Live was Paul Glynn. When Paul came on initially, we sat down and we were talking. He actually made me feel, and we used to talk about it afterwards, he made me feel uncomfortable because of the questions he would ask. And there were some real truths that came out during the conversation. This is only very short, this bit, but it makes you think a little bit. If you are still going out there and you're doing one-to-one business generation, or you're talking to large corporates, the advice that Paul's about to give you is going to be really interesting. The process or the technique that he uses is the Sandler technique. He's a Sandler practitioner, but the advice that he gives, I think, can be applied to whatever sales technique that you use when you are selling your brand, your product, or your services. Do watch this. It's quite an old program, about 3 years old, this one, but I think it still stands up to time very, very well. This is Paul Glynn talking about how to increase your sales.
So my name is Paul Glynn from Sandler, West End 25. I empower business people through assessments, training, coaching and mentoring to get more business using the counterintuitive Sandler communication process. So the main points I want to leave you with is you are told again and again to go out and tell people what you do. They don't care. Nobody cares. They are only worried about their own problems. So start and finish with those. All buyers lie all the time. They don't mean to, but they just do. Nobody likes being sold to, so stop selling and let your prospects close themselves. But to do all that with confidence, you're going to need a bulletproof system.
Bulletproof system, and that bulletproof system is the Sandler system. If you want to find out more about Paul, you can simply go to our website where you'll see more details concerning that. Fantastic show. By the way, if you want to go to the website, of course, the address is businessconnectionslive.com. What did you make of that? That line at the very beginning that everybody, they don't mean to lie, but everybody lies. And to make it all about them, it's really what you've been saying when it comes to what we've been talking about here, isn't it? The trouble that we all have is when we go out and we want to talk about things, it's all about us. Me, 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 me. And very seldom do we get it in our head that it's all about you, 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 you. And that's the problem that we have. And if we were to get over that, do you think all the networking issues, would you stop selling books if we knew that?
Yeah, I hope not. But that's the thing. Even back in the shoe shop in 1983, we would get chatting to the people in the shop about what they wanted a pair of shoes for, which might seem obvious, but is it for a specific event? Are you going to a wedding? Is it day-to-day shoes? Once you knew what they wanted, then you could help them to buy it. And I completely agree with what your guest was saying there. People care about their problems. And so if we spend more of our time networking, including social media, listening to other people. So, for example, if someone had listened to Linda on LinkedIn by reading her posts and so on, and then actually proposed a solution to Linda for something that she might need in her business, people are much more likely to listen to that than if you just broadcast them about your stuff. But that's still what most people do. So there's a huge opportunity for those people who actually listen, ask questions, and find out about the other person.
So how do we continue to make sales then? How do we go about doing that?
Continue to make sales from networking.
From networking, yeah.
A couple of things. And this comes down to listening to people as well. If you really listen to people, then you can understand what your audience wants to buy. Actually having a product, service, solution that fits your audience is really important. I spent the first 18 months or so of my networking selling something that nobody wanted to buy. And that's a really hard lesson to learn, but it's an important lesson to learn. Making sure that you've got something that people want to buy, spotting those buying signals. They might be really subtle these days, but they're still there online. That person who's liking every one of your posts, commenting all the time, that sort of thing, spotting those subtle buying signals that are there, and then not being afraid to act on them. Again, going back to 1983, I would walk up to someone and say, do you need any specific help today, sir? I worked in the gents department. But actually using networking, LinkedIn, Facebook, social media as a gateway to an actual conversation. So when you're seeing those buying signals, actually pick up the phone or take the conversation to the next stage. I prefer to pick up the phone and actually talk to people, but even sending them a specific personal message is better than just ignoring them at that stage.
My studio's just overheated, so one of the cameras has just failed on me. But that's all right. We can still handle it. That's good. That's really interesting that you say that, and I think it's that insightful way that you've gone through the process that we've got here today. That really does show people that online networking, offline networking, is exactly the same. It's just a different medium that we're using to achieve the similar and the same results.
And right now, when I talk about networking, people usually think that I mean small businesses, self-employed businesses, the type of people that I go to networking events. But right now, with everything that's going on in the country and the world, I honestly believe that people who are employed should spend time building their network as well. Perhaps not going to events as such, but certainly using LinkedIn, building up their part, making sure that they've got a profile on LinkedIn. Your network can become really very valuable if, God forbid, you have to look for another job or move jobs or whatever it happens to be. So it's not just for self-employed people like me, Steve. everyone should learn the skills to build their network, and being active on LinkedIn as well as networking events, I think is really vitally important to everyone these days.
Let's have a little look at the old website then, just for a couple of seconds, shall we? Just tell us a little bit about the networking retreat, if people want to find out more about that. Just explain a little bit more for us right now.
Of course I will, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to give a plug. Up until lockdown, I was running a real life event here in Oxfordshire where people came and spent a couple of days with me. We're now running the same event virtually, which is working really well because people can come from wherever they are in the world. And I've had people come from Australia, for example. And also people are getting the same results. And I dare say, because we're now online and I'm not we're not all staying in a hotel for a couple of days, it's a lot more cost effective for people to come along to the networking retreat. So that's where I actually spend time with people, write their introduction for them, their 40 or 60-second introduction, build them a follow-up program. We're talking about it in broad terms here, but build something actually bespoke for them. Plus, as you've given me the opportunity to have a bit of a plug, I run a completely free app where I'm putting networking advice every single day. That was absolutely seamless. So the Networking Retreat app, people can either scan that QR code, which is there in front of them, or just search the Networking Retreat on the Apple or Google stores, and they'll find the app there. It's genuinely completely free. I put completely unique networking advice in there that I don't put anyone else. And actually, we've built up a decent community in there. There's a good bunch of people in there who are networking, dare I say it, as well as getting advice from me.
Now, I'm not certain whether this is going to work. Oh, that camera's working. That's a good thing. That one's back again. That's good. It's been, the hour is up. And I've downloaded the app, by the way, so I'll be looking at that. So that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing everything that you've shared today. Would you do me one? Could you give a final, do you think, summary of what we've talked about in the past hour? And let's make the emphasis on online networking, because I think it's going to be a while before we start seeing the offline networking events coming up over a period of time.
I'd be more than happy to. I have to say, just like the two other occasions I've spent with you, Steve, that hour's gone really quickly, and I hope it has for the people watching as well. I'm Stefan Thomas. I'm the author of Business Networking for Dummies. Let's make sure that people can see that on the screen. We've been talking about networking, and specifically online networking. If you haven't attended an online networking event yet, and you're running your own business, now is absolutely the time to get stuck in. It's much more accessible than it was in real life to get to a networking event. It's typically less expensive as well to get to a networking event right now. And you will build really useful contacts and potentially customers for your business as well. Get along to a networking event, and when you go, spend time getting to know the other people in the room. Make sure that you've got a 40 or 60-second pitch ready to go. I call it an introduction. Other people like to call it a pitch, so you'll know what I'm talking about. Earlier in this program, we talked about how to structure it. When you're there, a couple of really specific things. Make sure you're talking to the camera. And not looking at the other people in the room, because then it looks like you're looking away. And also, if you've got the opportunity to put your details in the chat box, if you're using Zoom or the chat box on other platforms, my big tip is have it already written and ready to go, so that you can just copy and paste it to save you having to type away during the networking event itself. Have a pen and a piece of paper to write down the names of the people that you speak to, so that you remember to connect with them afterwards and continue the conversation. Every big opportunity starts with a little conversation. The networking event is just the start of the conversation. Make sure that you continue the conversation afterwards. I really hope that's helpful.
It's been fantastic. Thank you very much, Stefan, for all your time and everything. I've lost my double shot at the moment, but can I just say thank you so much for being with us on today's program. It's been a real insightful show. It's been lovely to see you again. Lovely to see the shirt. What's the future hold for you at the moment, by the way? What's going to be the next thing on? As lockdown maybe eases? What are the plans that you've got over the next 12 months to grow your business?
Oh, that's a really good question. Thank you. And I've actually just spent the whole weekend planning that and talking to Sharon about it. So what's interesting is that virtual business events have become a thing now. I've been booked to speak at a property event in September, which I'll be doing virtually from here. I've been booked to speak at a regional business awards in October, which I'll be doing from here. And we've got the Scottish networking show coming up in September as well, which I will be doing live from Oxfordshire. So that's a big, but speaking has been a part of my business, and now a lot of that's moved virtually. The networking retreat will continue online. I'll continue to visit networking events online, and you heard it here first. I started on book number 4 during lockdown, so I expect to have that finished by the end of this year and published sometime next year. So there you go. You heard that here first.
Listen, that's fantastic. Thank you ever so much for joining us today, Stefan. Have a great sunny afternoon. Don't work too hard. Until we do this all again, you look after yourself, all right?
You too, Steve. Thanks very much for having me on.
Stefan Thomas there on this week's edition of Business Connections Live. Thank you very much to him for joining me on the program today. An absolute pleasure. I hope you found it useful. We're going to be rerunning the program later in the week. We're going to be taking extracts from this program. We'll be putting them out onto LinkedIn. And if you're interested in coming on the program, well, why don't you go to our website at businessconnectionslive.com. You can check us out there. And you can also put your name down to be a part of our expert guest presenters. So if you've got skills like Stefan has, and you'd like to share them with everybody, it's a small production fee, of course, but get in touch with us here at Business Connections Live, and then we'll take it to the next step. And who knows, you could be using content just like this on your social media platforms in the very near future. But from me, Steve Hyland, thank you very much indeed for watching today's program. Hope you found it useful. We'll do it all again next Monday in the sunshine. Today it's going to be 34 degrees here in good old London town. I hope it's wonderful where you are. I know the thunderstorms are on the way. And until we do this all again, listen, stay safe out there. Keep wearing your masks, protect others, and stay alert. But from all the team here at Business Connections Live, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now. Bye-bye.
Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel.